We fail to acknowledge the reality that healthcare professionals are still humans.
My curiosity has been piqued. Now I need to solve this. I'll stay to the end. It is an attention economy, right? You have to get people, you have to hold their attention, and then you have to deliver on promises. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode here at DigiVid. We are excited to bring this one to you today because a lot of people have issues in the marketing realm, especially HCP marketing, in building a YouTube channel or other platforms like it and trying to engage audience or in trying to attach that to the business model and the actual bottom line. You know, how can I get my marketing efforts tied to ROI? So we're going to talk about this very specifically with YouTube, and hopefully you stay to the end. If you haven't already, please make sure to like and subscribe below, and maybe even leave a comment of who you are and who you work for. With some brief introductions, I'd like to go around the square here and introduce Adam, our director of photography, Nason, one of our key editors and camera ops, and then we have Alyssa, one of our producers, and I'm Trip. I'm the other producer here at DigiVid. So today, I think, we'll just jump off and say you're an HCP marketer, and you really want to start a YouTube channel for your brand, for your company. What are the kind of ideas that people go into it with? Or one of the ideas that people go into it with is they see the end result of people on YouTube, and they see these platforms that have high production value and great high subscriber counts, high view counts. And they think that's what they're going to get to because they have this really good idea for a singular video. But YouTube is really a macro view platform. You have to think about all of what's happening, not just the specifics of one video or a couple videos. So a lot of people go into it thinking, I see this person who's won the lottery, I'll just buy a lottery ticket. And that's not going to work just as that analogy is going to work. So what you really have to do is you have to take a step back and look at what's important at the beginning. And that's building the foundation of your YouTube channel. That's creating different workflows that work to be producing this content. That's creating different thumbnails, things like that. And we'll get into all those minutia later in other videos. Right now, we're going to kind of stay in that top level and talk about one of the biggest parts of this idea, of this step back. What is one of the biggest things? And I think Alyssa is one of the best people to talk about this because she's so passionate about this one specific part of this macro scale for YouTube. So Alyssa, if you want to talk about consistency and why it's so important.
Yeah. I mean, I think that when it comes to, and I would say that this isn't even just true on YouTube, this is true cross-platform, right? When you're looking at social media, like the algorithm of most of these platforms is that they want you to be on them as much as possible, and they want you to be really consistent. And I think with YouTube in particular, if you're a smaller business and you're just starting out, like obviously we know that outputting at a high frequency isn't sustainable for most businesses. And that's okay. The reality of it is that it's less important to be publishing a ton of content, but more important to be doing it consistently over a long period of time. So whether you're posting media on your YouTube channel only once a month or even once a quarter, as long as you're doing it regularly and your audience knows you're committed and invested to showing up at the same time, they're going to be there. Because you want to build dedicated audience. It is more important to establish a consistent relationship with your viewer and encourage them to keep coming back and to know that they can depend on you for this reliable, specific niche of media that you're publishing for them. And the reason is because you're building out brand advocates, allies who are going to be participating online in discussions with you, who are going to go out and advocate for you cross-platform, who are going to bring you new leads and new revenue opportunities. I hope that kind of illustrates, frames it up a little bit.
Yeah, I think you did a really good job of explaining, what the importance of that consistency and that value is. And we'll get into value a little bit later. And it's a very big moment, right, for HCP marketers, because if you think about you personally, I would have loved to 10 years ago start streaming. And if I was just playing video games streaming, and, by 10 years later, I could be making millions of dollars because I was consistently posting it and doing this thing. And I think a lot of people see, the success of these major podcasts and all these different sources where you see the tail end, the long tail where it's paid off. But right now for HCP marketers, no one's doing that. And so you can use YouTube to really like launch yourself and go back in time and just start 10 years ago for actual like entertainment. YouTube is where a lot of people are right now for education, information based for companies and things like HCP marketers. So it's really kind of like time travel. And if you can consistently come up with a structure to build this, you could have a really good audience base in a couple of years that could really be tying back into your actual business. Going into some of those basics and those starting points, one of the big metrics you should be looking at is input. Like you said, how often you are putting in videos, content. So you're talking about frequency versus volume, where one, if you're consistently doing it on a quarterly basis and you can sustain that, that's going to work a lot better than if you do 4 videos in 1 month and then wait 11 months to do it again.
Yeah.
So
to your point, Trip, though, like what you kind of mentioned at the front of this is like, if you're one of those people if your C-suite leaders are measuring the success of your platform based on things like, quite frankly, like vanity metrics, like how many views you're getting or how many new subscribers you're getting, and you're only putting out a video once a quarter, I can tell you right now, like they're not going to be happy. You know what I mean? Like for those types of metrics, the volume at which you're releasing is super important. So if you're not publishing very regularly and consistently, then yeah, you're probably not going to build a lot of subscribership or viewership very quickly. But at the same time, from a business perspective, I think like we would say, or at least I know I would say, that's not really a great recommendation, because whether or not you have a lot of viewers or subscribership doesn't mean that's turning into new revenue stream or new leads, new business, new deals for you guys. And there's really no relevance as a business building out audience if it's not converting.
Yes. Yeah. I've done competitive analysis of other brands that have videos that have like millions of views. But the reason why is it's an embedded clip on their website and it's a 15-second video. And so you could watch it 10 times, but the 3 million views on that video isn't going to do anything for you. And then all of their actual content had under 1,000 views. And so it's like you have this, video that has millions of views, but you're still not like a very successful in those vanity metrics. Right. So that's why they're called vanity metrics. They're not really, there's no sustenance to them. And so one of the next metrics is kind of going to be your CTR, like how well your thumbnails, your titles, these things that bring people in are working. And so, we call it an elevator pitch in the YouTube community because it really is that 30-second or 15-second. Really, it's a 10-second now. And with this attention deficit culture we have, that 10 seconds is all you have. So Adam, what are some things that from a media creative perspective, can you talk to about the importance of effective thumbnails and titling?
So there's a couple of things. So with the titling, it really comes down to like, what are people searching? So we have to remember that YouTube is a subsidiary of Google. It is fundamentally a multi-platform. So people see it as just like a video platform or a player. It's really not. It's an analytics platform. It's a data entry and gathering platform. There's all these things that what Google is also what YouTube is, right? So when people look at like search engines, for example, if you include YouTube as a search engine rather than a video platform, it's like top 3. I think it's number 2.
Yeah.
So you're looking at something like it's as high in regards to just searchability in regards to information searchability as Google is. And then also all the top recommendations for videos, when somebody does Google something, because YouTube is owned by Google, it will favor the YouTube channel over other things like Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn. So you have to keep in mind that like when you're looking at what should we title this article in regards to Google searches for something that you might post on a blog or as a publication that you're trying to submit to a publisher like Nature magazine or whatever that is. the same thought process needs to go into like your YouTube videos. So if you're publishing something in Nature, that title is really important for your research to be seen, because the title tells a lot of information about what you're about to read, and it's searchable. That same idea needs to go into your titles of your YouTube channel. So it's really good to use tools to search up what's most commonly searched within the topic, how it's phrased, what keywords are used. Those are really important in your titling. The other thing is, like, when it comes to titling, and this is also consistent with your thumbnail, is have a format that works and stay with that format. So one of the things that's important is when people return to your videos, you'll find that you'll have people returning to your videos that aren't subscribed yet. And so it might take them a couple of your videos to get them subscribed. For them to know for sure they're in the right place, and it's not just like somebody knocking off your video, which does happen. So you have to be careful of that. Make sure your titles and things like that are consistent. That way they can read it and go, oh yeah, I'm definitely in the right place because it's titled similar to a previous video, and subconsciously they go, okay, I'm in the right place. The same goes for your thumbnail. So sometimes you want to come up with something interesting, creative for each one. But in reality, the branding should be consistent, just like the branding is consistent on all other platforms, like your website and your printables and your business cards and all that stuff. So your YouTube channel should essentially be branded, and your thumbnail should be branded in a way that's consistent. So if somebody clicks on a video and they watch it to the end, and then they're looking at the recommended videos, they'll be able to see all the videos that come from you because the thumbnails are consistent. They don't need to look at the channel underneath the thumbnail to know, oh, this is from your brand. They can just look at the thumbnail and know it's from your brand. And so thumbnails are really important to be consistent, because it is the biggest visual indicator that somebody's going to click on. It's not the title necessarily. So the title is what they might be connected to, what they're searching, but what they actually click on is what they see interesting, and that is going to be your thumbnail. So make sure it catches eye. So don't make it too boring or too simple. Make sure that it's branded so that they know that they're in the right place, looking at the right company. And then the next thing is make sure it's clear that you know what you're looking at. There's a lot on social media, especially for younger people coming into the industry. So college students coming into the industry, or young doctors, for example, or PhD researchers, right? They're used to TikTok and Instagram where the thumbnail is a bait and switch. So as a brand, you don't want to do that. You want the thumbnail to represent the content of the video while being in that brand. And so if yours is some kind of really important data, have like whatever is the big hook of that data integrated into the branding of your thumbnail so that people can go, whoa, that's new, click, and then they get to hear the rest of it, right? So it is the call to action. And then did you ask about like a hook or the first 10 seconds, or just we're doing that now?
We're just outside the video. We're not even in the video yet.
That's all right, cool.
And I think you touched on everything perfectly. I think
input.
Yeah, Nathan.
Some people, there's also another thing that people don't really utilize is also the description. Like if you put certain words or hashtags of what the video is talking about, that also gets into the algorithm, and someone that's looking up a specific thing, right, and they search it up, and your video might pop up under there if you put the right hashtag or the right description. And also it's another way to put your website, other platforms that you want to link other people into, especially your LinkedIn, if it's that specific audience that you're trying to gravitate to. But yeah, people overlook the description a lot and not realize that also helps the algorithm and your videos get into other people's algorithm, if that makes sense.
And proper transcriptions.
Yeah, I was going to say to that point, like especially in the medical industry, how often do people upload videos on YouTube and don't make their custom transcription for it or their custom closed captions for it and just let the AI default? And now you're missing out on major SEO for your brand, because a lot of what the AI is going to build for your closed captions is completely inaccurate. So like the names of medicines aren't going to be correct, the names of your physicians. And if you're using like, KOLs that have big names of their own and are really known in the industry and the community, you want their name to be correct, because those keywords in the back end of the transcript for the video are feeding into Google, and they're helping bring you organic searches. So when people go to look for that KOL who's in your video could be popping up for them pretty quickly if Google can see that person was in your video, but they're not going to know if you don't have their name spelled correctly in your closed captioning in your transcripts.
Right. We run into that all the time. Biopsy could be heard as by rap city. And it's like, why would you think of that? And it's like, well, AI isn't the human that's reading it in context. It just hears a word that's not a common word to be used on a YouTube platform. And so it's like, oh, this, we're going to use common words, right? Like city or rap and by rather than biopsy, right? So we run into that all the time. And sometimes we lean back and laugh about it because we're like, what was the AI thinking on this?
Yeah.
But you really do have to be specific about everything, including the transcript. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, and I think that this is all great stuff that's kind of leading us to, and Adam, you covered some really great points, and everything y'all have said has been reflected. What's very interesting is a lot of the people who are in the position to be making these marketing decisions are looking at it, having gone through the experience of seeing the transition through these different technologies, where a lot of the people coming up have seen this their whole life. They were so young when YouTube came out that it's been such a big source. I mean, how many people are like, oh, I don't know how to change my oil. Let me look up a video, and now I know how to change the oil on my car, and I can do it myself. It is a search engine. With ChatGPT, I'm sure it's dropped a little bit on the list, or other AIs, but it's still where a lot of people go to find information, especially those people under 45. And if you're looking at the next 5-10 years to really come in on that audience, those are the people who are going to be becoming decision makers in the next 5-10 years. So it's really important to meet them where they're at and to boost it with great thumbnails, great titles, and great descriptions, uploading transcripts, and all of these things are really going to help people with that click-through rate. It's going to help getting people onto your channel, onto your videos. And then the point is going to be the next metric. How do you keep them there? What is going to keep them there? It's going to be the content. And a lot of that is decided in the first minute. I don't know about you, but I can tell it's an ad in those first 30 seconds or even 10 seconds. I can tell if they're going to sell me on something. I can tell if I have to skip the whole video to get to the one question I want an answer to. So Nason, from an editor standpoint, Adam already kind of brought it up, but like for hooks, what do you look at? What do you want to talk about in relation to hooks?
So for hooks, I look for two things. I look for one, like an authentic moment, or two, a standout fact, a fun fact. Like, I don't know, I like every day to learn something new. That's whether it's a random niche thing. I just like to learn something new and give me like that's interesting. Or when if I'm looking at something, even if it is an ad, I do like if the ad is showing some of like a blooper, if it was going to show someone talking about someone in the first 5 seconds is them messing up on their words, and then it cuts to like what they're talking about, I'm gonna give it a pass of like, all right, at least you're being authentic and showing that even making this was like probably difficult, or it's something like that. So I look for those two things when I at least for myself, when I'm editing a video and wanting to put a hook in it to keep an audience to stay. But I feel like that's just the common thing for everything now, especially on the attention span, is to find what is the standout fact on whatever the subject of that video is, and just hope that's what that grabs the attention. Because at the end of the day, everyone's minds is different. That hook could be perfect for everyone, but then it could just be another swipe to someone. So it is difficult to figure out which one's going to work and keep the audience to stay. But in my own opinion, I feel like it's the two things that keeps people from swiping away is showing an authentic moment during the filming of it, or just giving out a good fact that's in the video.
Yeah, kind of making a promise for what's to come.
Yeah. When you say authentic moment, I feel like I just want to clarify too for healthcare marketers. And I think this is a common mistake in our industry, is that we Adam brings this up all the time, but like we fail to acknowledge the reality that healthcare professionals are still humans, right? So to your point, like, yeah, leading with an important fact or piece of data that draws their attention immediately is great. But don't underestimate that even healthcare professionals do make decisions emotionally. And in sales and in marketing, we have to think about the emotional impact and what role that plays in decision making. So for your audience with healthcare providers, they are strongly motivated by patient impact. And so leading with key pieces of not just data, but also when you're using, like, say, a case study in something you're presenting, like helping emphasize the impact to that patient's care, to their treatment path, and how they felt about it. I can't tell you how much the content we make resonates with doctors and other healthcare providers when you really lead with, this is something that changed someone's life. It has to be, you know, whether it's something that impacts them because it's inspiring or emotional, as in this was a really big struggle or challenge for this patient, this hardship that they were going through, or even something funny and lighthearted, like, ironically enough, like, this is how I came to this conclusion or decision. You know, whatever that emotional draw is, whether you're feeding on a person's, you know, fear of the unknown or their sense of humor or wit around it, those punchy, impactful, emotional things can make all the difference in what's going to encourage the viewer to want to watch your video all the way through.
The last thing I think that is really important is you can also utilize an impactful moment that sets up the question the audience wants answered, right? And so you can have the moment where, like, we did not expect the data to point this direction, but it's going to make a big impact on how we treat in the future. And then you're like, what do you mean? You know, so it's like, I want to know why the data pointed that direction. So I'm going to watch the podcast so I can hear about the research study, how it was managed, what the data said, and how that impacts my patients, right? And so that's another way, like, to get someone hooked, to say, here's your thumbnail. This is a topic that we're going to talk about. And in the first couple of seconds, we're going to set up the question that we know our audience wants answered.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. I think those are the two best ways to build a hook for that. And really, I think the authenticity really helps bring in that human aspect. And then you also get that human aspect of, like, my curiosity has been piqued. Now I need to solve this. I'll stay to the end, or, you know, like, I'll stay. And so that's really what you're trying to do is create, like, it's like a book, right? You're trying to give all the information in the order you have to give it in, right? You know, if it's a good story, it might be, you know, Christopher Nolan, I'll put the beginning at the end and the end at the beginning, and then you have to stay the whole time. Or it could be like a book that's like, step 1, this is what you do. Step 2, this is what you do. And both those are going to lead you progressively through the video. And that client or that customer or that audience retention is really what you're looking for. So that is that second metric, is that viewer retention. And so when you have a good quality hook that, one, the people can relate to on an authentic, reality, emotion-based level, like, oh, this doctor is seeing a problem I'm seeing. How did they deal with this in this case study? Or you're seeing, like, oh, the data was pointing one way and it turns out it's another way. Oh, this is the explanation. So as we go through that story, again, it's just storytelling. We talk about it all the time, but really storytelling is the basis of most of what we do. And I think that customer or that audience retention really comes through with a strong hook. But even more importantly, it's the content that you have backing it up. I think Nason or Adam, one of you touched on it. Like, people are so well trained to be like, oh, this thumbnail says this thing, click on it, watch the whole video, and it had nothing to do with the video. Why did it, you know, this brand is disingenuous. They're just trying to get viewership. And then you go back to the vanity metrics and you're not getting that client retention, that audience retention. So, like, then you want to go into the next metric, which is a demand signal audit. How good is your content? What is it providing for that audience? You know, where are they coming from? And you have to see, you know, are people coming from the YouTube algorithm? Are they coming from LinkedIn? You know, are you using other channels to push people here, and how that's working? I think this is definitely something we can talk about, but I want to kind of open table who, if does anyone want to talk about this, you know? Oh,
We're going to fight.
I'll start with Adam since Alyssa went first last time.
Well, I think one of the things that we forget about is I think sometimes it's like, I've used the analogy like fishing versus hunting, right? So like when you're fishing, you bait your hook and you put it in the water, and then sometimes you wait, and you just wait, and hopefully somebody comes by and sees the bait and hooks onto it. On the other hand, you know, when you think about like, if you're going out and hunting, you're hiking, you're moving, you're trying to find where the thing is, and you're trying to be enticing to it while also going towards it. And so it's really important to decide, like, how are you going to do that? Are you going to make it super enticing so that they come to you? I think you need to, but I also think one of the strategies that I've seen really successfully done and not talked about very much is going to the places where your audience are. And so where are you posting your own video? And you can go from a very authentic place. So say you have new research that affects oncology, you go to platforms that have a bunch of oncologists, whether that's a Facebook group or a vlog or wherever, and just post it there and say, hey, we just published new research. We made this video about it. We'd love your feedback. Let us know what you think. And don't be afraid of negative comments. Negative comments are going to exist no matter what, but they will start conversation. And the more interaction, the better your video will do. And so don't just put it out there and then say, oh, let's just track where people come from and then hope people come. You know, you may get the most traction from LinkedIn to your YouTube channel because that's where your audience is. Or there may be some obscure Facebook group that's got 200-300 physicians in it that are within your space, and they share information and they share patient stories so that they can get better at being doctors. And you just drop your data in there, and all of a sudden you got 200-300 views, right? And so go out and be active in the community with your videos. Post them in places where your audience will see it, and then after time, it'll grow organically based on that audience because they'll share it with each other and things like that. So that's my big thing more recently, because I feel like that gets missed a lot, because you want to post, you've made a great looking channel, you've got great thumbnails, great algorithmic based titles and descriptions, and you've done everything right. And then you post it on your channel. And if you have a new channel, especially, there's no one going there yet. So you need to go to where they are.
Yeah. I think so you kind of brought up the valid point that you have to market your own content. And I think marketers don't think of that. They think that making the content is the marketing. Why would I have to do anything else other than that? And it's like, that's not how it works. You know, you make this long form content that's actually a great sales tool to help encourage, you know, putting people into your funnel. But then you have to market that video to draw them to that place where they're going to engage in the full duration of like that long form content, whatever that is, right? Yeah. So to me, I'm looking at this from a sales perspective, and I'm thinking about the difference between getting new leads and getting qualified leads, right? So that's kind of, I feel like what we're talking about here in terms of video. Like, you don't want to get a lot of random Joe Schmo people on the internet watching your video. You want to make sure that you're hitting the people who actually matter, who have an impact on your brand. Like, we want to be in front of people who are qualified leads, because as a marketer, my goal isn't just to send a ton of leads to sales. My goal is to send them qualified leads that have a higher probability of converting into new deals, new clients. So I think, Adam, part of it is for sure what you said, which is just being in the right places where you know those prospects are online. But I think that to find that too, you could consider surveying. I think a lot of marketers don't think about that before they start a new strategy. If you know that you're gonna start a new video content strategy and you want to be on a platform like YouTube and you want to be publishing long form content regularly, survey your customers. Like, if you've built a good relationship with a small docket of customers, reach out to them, send them just a couple simple questions, get them on a 15-minute call, whatever that looks like, to ask them like, hey, we're thinking of starting a webinar series or doing a new podcast or whatever it is. We'd really love your insight. Like, what's the type of stuff that would help encourage you when you're using our product, or encourage you when you're thinking about someone who provides services like ours? You know, what are things that would help you feel confident engaging with us?
Yeah, and that's, again, the importance of that retention. It's the importance of bringing people in. Like, once you have all these people coming in further down that funnel, you can start getting very specific answers to very specific questions. And then, I mean, I don't know a salesperson who wouldn't love just a quick alley-oop of a lead, you know, just like, oh, here's someone who's literally looking for this exact question. And that's the first one of our FAQs. Like, you can literally just say, hey, we solved this problem. This is how. And then boom, it's right there. It's in the basket, and they've just made a sale. And so I think that is the importance of kind of this next part of where we're going, is like, how do you tie this? Because like I said, when you start, you're going to want to see high views. You're going to want to see high subscribers, but that's not going to happen. And so we're looking at how consistent we're putting into it to stay relevant on the algorithm. We're looking at how we're creating thumbnails, titles, uploading transcripts, descriptions, making sure all of that brings people in. Then we're also going out and we're meeting people where they're at, bringing more marketing in. And then those people are going to stay and continue watching our channel. That's when you start to see this turnover in those later years, that 5 to 10 year. I don't think it's going to be that long, especially if you niche down enough to where you're getting actual qualified people right off the bat. You're not going to have tens of thousands of subscribers. You could have 1,000, and then you get 10 people who are decision makers at a hospital or within a health network. That's a big sale right there. And that almost pays for the whole thing 10 times over if you can make that happen. So that's where you start to see that transition from YouTube metrics, those vanity metrics we're talking about, into actual real data, ROI, and it's going to really help take off your business. So it's really important to think long-term, but act short-term. That's the whole key to YouTube. Is there any points kind of as we close out, do you guys want to talk about in this transition of YouTube metrics to business metrics?
Yeah, I think the main thing too in maintaining those qualified people is to listen to them. Many of the platforms that I follow in our industry, in the marketing and film production industry, their videos start out with, we were sent this, and so we want to tell you about it. And so what that means is, you know, looking at what your audience is engaging with in the conversation and saying, we noticed this question about our data has come up a lot. Or we've heard that within prescribing, based on our diagnostic test, there's this confusion, right? And so listen to your audience and then speak to them. The cool thing about YouTube is it is a back and forth. They can talk to you and you can talk to them, which means you have this cool insight into what your audience wants. And if you give them that, then they'll stay and they'll interact and they'll actually share and grow your audience organically. People don't want to be marketed to. They want edutainment is what they want. They want to go there to learn something and be entertained at the same time. And if you can have that magic in the content of your videos, they're going to come back. They're going to share with their friends. I mean, the best thing you can ask for is for one of your persons of interest or your major leads to be like, this is great information. And then they send it off to another very qualified colleague within the industry. And so,
Yeah. And I know, Alyssa, you want to say something. I just want to go in on something Adam said. A very important point is, you know, when you're getting that feedback, you're having that conversation with your audience, you're posting questions in your videos for comments, they're posting those comments, and then you make your next video about those comments. Well, anyone who comes across a video in the algorithm, that's potentially the first time they're seeing that. So without having any prior engagement with, like, say Adam is a stable viewer, he watches all my videos, he posts a comment, hey, how do you guys solve for X? And then I make a video on this is how we solve for X. Well, then Nason comes in 2 weeks later when we've posted this video of, you know, how we solve problem X. And he's like, how did they know I had that problem? And so it seems like witchcraft, and it's like they're reading my mind to Nason, but Adam's already engaging. And so that's the really cool part, is each video is top funnel for everyone who's seeing it for the first time. Sorry, Alyssa, I know I jumped in before you, but I think you add some great stuff to this as well.
No, you're totally fine. Yeah. I was just going to add that because we're talking a little bit about at the time that your metrics start shifting to real world, right? And so I think that it's so important as a marketer when you're thinking about your strategy for quantifying the content that you're pushing, because it costs money, right? We know that what we do is an investment for a business. So we know that if you're making a video content strategy for your business and you're going to start publishing media regularly, it's going to cost the business money up front. And you are going to have to go to your C-suite leaders and help quantify how they're making money back on that. What's the ROI? And it's not going to happen overnight. We know that. We know that a lot of times video marketing strategy is an upfront investment that you don't see return on for maybe a couple of years. But when you do hit that point, the only way you're going to know is if you're working collectively with your sales team. So I can't say enough that the businesses that are able to really track the success of their video strategies, they do it by having tools that enable their salespeople to track the metrics of where their leads are coming from. So make sure that whatever sales, CRM platform that you're using in your business, that you've enabled what you need to for your sales team to keep an eye on, are people finding us from our podcast, from our webinars? Where are they hearing about us? Where are they seeking us out? And or even embedded links and making sure you have tracking on those. Like if you're going to put a link to contact your sales team from your description on your videos, like make sure you have the means by which to track how much traffic that's getting. And then keep an eye from your sales team, more importantly, on how often are those leads converting into new deals or new business.
Yeah, because if you can't measure it, you can't read it. Like you have to measure what matters. You have to be able to measure it and then adjust. And so that's what this is about. And that's really what this whole YouTube channel is for. And it is an attention economy, right? You have to get people, you have to hold their attention, and then you have to deliver on promises. And so you're already doing that before YouTube. Like you have a product, you have customers, you're delivering. Now you're just talking about it. And that talking is reaching new people. And so it's how you can build that infrastructure of how you build the content, but also how you track that content and how well it works is infinitely, it's going to just help you so much. And then it helps you find new questions. Your sales team is another way that you can find good content. What questions are they facing on a daily basis? So I think all of this really kind of ties back in. And then you start to see, ROI and the beauty of what this additional funnel, this other attention income stream is going to bring to you. Well, I think this was a great discussion. I think that we covered a lot of ground, and I hope you didn't just skip to the end like I suggested you do for other videos, or I have done for videos myself, because you really have to see every stage of this video in order to fully understand how every stage is important in tying what content you're building and putting out and how it affects your bottom line for your business, and how you can tie those two together with effective thumbnails, with effective descriptions, with effective titles, content. Authenticity is going to be key. Adam, you said edutainment, which is really all YouTube is, and that's pairing that authenticity with that factual base we talked about in that first segment or second segment. So what we're going to ask from you now is a little bit of content feedback. Please comment below any challenges you face in starting your YouTube channel. If you have issues pitching it to C-suite, if you have issues trying to come up with content ideas, we have resources for that too. But we'd love to just talk with you and find a way to really increase the value of our content as we build this channel as well. So thank you for joining us today. We hope you got something out of it, and please come back for the next one.